Yes, thank you very much, everyone. Uh, Good evening or good morning. My name is Amos Asiimwe. I am a master's student. I'm doing a Master's of Science in Applied Human Nutrition at Makarere University in Kampala, Uganda. And I'm an intern on the RTB project. I will be presenting on the creation or developing of quality trait dictionaries of different food products and a possibility of storing these trait dictionaries in breed bases. So I request for your attention. Thank you. Uh, I have been under the supervision of Elizabeth. So I think the introduction is done. We can go into the presentation. The RTB project aims to provide data required by breeders to understand preferences of each market segment and make this data storable in the breed bases. Yeah, so at, to the end of this, the connection of the breeding product profiles to the food product profiles per region is desirable. Yes, we different foods or different crops, for example, cassava, are preferred in a different way in different regions. So that's why we have to attach a food product to a particular region or country. Therefore, specific ontologies, what we are calling trait dictionaries, that provide harmonization of products, or the properties of products, assessment or measurement. Yeah, so the properties of the products are important, but also what is more important is how these properties are measured so that you have a uniform or information can be shared across scientists. So, and this will support data interpretation across all the social groups and provide interpretability in the breed bases. So a harmonized way of showing how each property was measured is needed. And that's what some of what these ontologies do. Yes, so going ahead, we had SOPs, and from these SOPs, the standard operating procedures of different products, it's from these SOPs that we extracted or that we used to make the ontologies. And in each of these SOPs, we had what we call a lexicon, which is basically a table listing sensory traits to be measured along with their definitions, standard methods of measurement, and the categorical scales. Here we gave an example of a scale 0 to 10, but some other food products like boiled yam, they used a scale of 0 to 100, and this was validated by Quality. So we are going to be looking at how the lexicon in the SOP can be used to finally make a trait dictionary. And we started with the products whose reports were available and had been validated. So we started with matoke, steamed or boiled matoke for Uganda. After that, we went to boiled sweet potato from Uganda. We also went ahead and made a trait dictionary for boiled cassava from Uganda, and then boiled yam in Benin. And later on, other SOPs were availed, and these were SOPs for fufu from Nigeria, eba from Nigeria, and pounded yam. And all the trait dictionaries for these products have been compiled. A lot of discussions have been made with the scientists responsible. So many corrections have been done and harmonizations have been done. So we are going ahead to, I'm showing you the type of data, for example, we get from sensory panels. And these products were measured or evaluated by trained panelists from trained sensory panels. And the kind of information you generate from these panels looks like what I am presenting in this slide. So from this slide, you can really see that it is difficult to obtain meaning from such a data set. For example, you may ask what kind of food product or food element was observed, or how was it observed or measured, or what does M mean, for example, or what is the meaning of value 7 or 6. So it is very hard to obtain meaning from such a data set. Therefore, a standardized variable format is needed and will enable detailed description of this data in the breed bases, such as in the breeding databases that we are calling breed bases. Yeah, so I am trying to show you why we really need these trait dictionaries. Yes. So we're looking at the methods that we use to extract these concepts for consistently extracting the elements composing of the variables measured or observed on the food product, we used a template from the crop ontology. So, and this template provides a format for the trait description and a nomenclature for the variables. Yes. So, but originally, we have to appreciate that this template was used or was conceived to describe variety traits and variables for field measurements and not for food products. Therefore, this template was modified and adapted to the measurements made on the food products, raw or processed foods, and also those performed during processing. So we had to modify this template to suit our food products. And these templates were then used to express sensory traits and also to express data on processing techniques. And I earlier alone talked about a lexicon. This is how it looks like. You have the type, you have attributes, definitions of the attributes, how to measure these attributes, and the scale. And in the trait dictionary, we had to make some changes like I have explained. For example, what we are calling the type in the trait dictionary is the trait class. What we are calling an attribute here in the trait dictionary is the name. What we are calling a definition in the trait dictionary is a trait description. So several changes were made, wordings were interchanged, and this is what I'm trying to really show. And it was also observed that different food products had some like different lexicons were not in a single format. So I think as part of my recommendations, I have noted that we should have a single format across all the food products. For example, here from the lexicon for fufu, we can see that it is much, much different from the lexicon for boiled yam from Benin. So it is good for these trait dictionary or for these lexicons to be, the format to be uniform across the products. And we may ask yourself, what are the benefits of the trait dictionary using the template? So the template will help us to clearly name and define each element composing a trait or a variable, and having a uniform trait will also helps to provide a method type for lexicons. Uh, Quality recommended the use of measurement for results from trained panels and also using estimation from hedonic sensory assessments. So also, the template, having a template which is uniform helps to remove ambiguity of some attributes definitions, because in the construction of these trait dictionaries, there is wide consultation with the food scientists involved. And also it helps to validate the trait names, variable names, and definitions because of the through these consultations with the food scientists. So the resulting sensory trait dictionary, for example, for matoke, will look like this. You have the product, you have the trait ID, the trait name, what is referred to as the attribute in the lexicon, the trait class, what is referred to as type in the lexicon, and the measurements, the scales. After extracting sensory traits or making trait dictionaries for sensory traits, we went ahead and made trait dictionaries for processing techniques. And we also, like in the previous case, we used a template when we made some modifications. It is important to note that in work package 1, activity 4, there were surveys participatory surveys that were made with small scale or commercial processors about how these different foods are processed, the steps, the procedures, and also the preferred traits and least preferred traits of these products. So it's from the reports, the validated reports from this activity, that the different processing techniques were extracted. So after using the template, we started with cassava, boiled cassava, and we had various a wide consultation with Alexandre Bonneau from CIHAD, who is a work package leader. We exchanged a lot, and we came up with a template, which template was then used or applied in the other food products. And so far, there is the trait dictionaries for sweet potatoes from Uganda, boiled yam, and boiled cassava are available, and we are trying to finalize them. It is also important to note that the preferred quality characteristics that were obtained from these reports, or the characteristics that were given by small-scale processors, were extracted and will be mapped also into the ontology. So this is an extract from the reports. This is for boiled cassava, obtained from a park here in Uganda, and it shows you the the parameters that were measured. For example, the peeling time, yield, productivity, and the steps the product goes through, and all these were captured and put into the trait dictionary, which appears like this. The colors are different because we have been consulting widely. So the trait dictionary looks like this. So you have the product, you have the technique and the methods of measurement, the definitions, the scales or units, and the labels. So we integrating the food products trait dictionaries into the crop ontology. So a test of integrating crop ontology, integrating these traits dictionaries into the crop ontology was performed by Maria Angelique Rapote, and discussions with quality food scientists. So the test was also performed. So the trait dictionary format adapted to sensory traits works rather well. So it was somehow a success. For the connection of the trait, as you can see, the trait description, the method, and the scales, you can see from that screenshot. So modifications should be also done. That is, we have to note that the modifications should be done to better adjust to scientists' feedback. And we are concluding that a new section in the crop ontology for food scientists is needed. Yeah, so those are some of the recommendations. So we also looked at the feasibility of integrating sensory panel data sets into the Breedbases so that this data can be accessed by breeders. So we also did a test, but it is important to note that some of the data, for example, For example, from Matoke lacked something, so it lacked some important information. For example, in the cassava data for cassava, we had all the important uh, data captured. For example, the accession name, plot number, block number, all this was captured. But in the Matoke data, it was missing, and it is important that the data set provides all the all the all the all the needed information like field location of the material tested. So this is what we are trying to communicate in this slide. And from this screenshot, we can see that you can link the sensory data to the material in the field. For example, this is data set for cassava. You can see that you can actually record this as you're building, putting this information in the breed bases. You can link the field to the food product even if it has gone up to the sensory panel. So it is important that we capture all this information where the food product came from for easy usability by the breeders. As part of the recommendations, the variables in the lexicons should always follow the same format. I have already talked about this. And the template being developed for food product trait dictionaries will have to be further tested and validated. This is very important and necessary. And a food product section needs to be created in the crop ontology. I have hinted on that. And data sets produced from sensory panels must include information on the material provenance. This is what I've been talking about. For example, field trial, plant number, population, etc. And the ontology will have to be used for the attributes and variables names. And also lastly, Breedbase will have to be adopted for the entry of sensory panel results and integrate the new ontologies for food products. So all these are what should be worked on in order to improve the storeability and usability of data. And concerning the next steps, for the remaining period of my internship, we are looking forward to extracting sensory traits for eba, fufu, and pounded yam. I have already started on this. I'm about to finish that. And also map the local processors' preferences to the traits in the ontology. This will be done in this remaining time, and also further test of breed-based format. And beyond the internship, this is what will go on after my internship. New ontologies to be published online. They will be published online and integrated into breed bases, and strengthening of a multidisciplinary expert groups for banana. This one, an expert group for banana has been made. I think Priscilla made that group. Sweet potato and potato. Actually, these ones are already in existence, and also creating expert groups for yam and cassava. I think the leaders in those areas will have to make sure that happens. Processing techniques for newly validated food product reports like eba, fufu, and pounded yam. So their processing techniques, the trait dictionaries will be compiled. So still to be developed, we are also supposed to look at social and market segments. So that one has been done due to shortage of time, but beyond the internship, this will be done. I acknowledge the contribution of all the scientists, including the people named in the slide, and every other person who made contribution to this work. I thank you very much for your listening, and I request for your input. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Amos, for this really interesting presentation and very well illustrated as well. Thank you. And it shows very well how important are trait dictionaries to standardize lexicon and variables used by the different labs which are apparently performing similar analysis on similar products sometimes. But for sure, these trait dictionaries will be used to standardize and to make sure that the methods, the scale used are actually the same. And thanks again for emphasizing on the different points of progress to enable the next step. And the next step, as you mentioned, it will be the upload of quality data, or let's say sensory data, onto Breedbase. So we can start. I've seen questions from Dominique in the chat. So Dominique, you're asking, so he's mentioning that traits are measured by the different sensory panels. And he's asking how could we harmonize the traits between product profiles? That's a broad question. Dominique, do you want to bring precision on this question?
Yes, normally the sensory panel is choosing the terminology of the traits he will evaluate, and it's different by each product profile. And this is why my question, how can we harmonize between product profile if the list of traits is defined during the session of description of the product? And it will be very difficult to have the same list of descriptor for fufu or for matoke, for example. And my question is for you, but also for the panelists, for Christophe or for somebody in the sensory evaluation team, because for me, I think it will be very difficult to have the same dictionary for all the product profile. This is an open question.
Amos, do you want to answer?
For Christophe or
Elizabeth?
May I try?
Yes, please.
Elizabeth online. I don't know, Dominique, if I capture all your points, but when Amos talked about using a similar format, it was more using the same way of describing the traits, method used for assessing the trait and the scales, more or less, and make sure that at least because what we have seen, most of the format are using a trait like yellow, and then you have a 1 to 10 scale, which seems to be kind of an agreed standard. While for some other product, we have seen that each color has its own scale. So you may have a yellow, a gray, a base scale. So there probably need just a discussion between different labs to try to agree on a way of naming and describing the attributes, I would say. You call that this in the lexicon. But what we don't recommend is that all lexicons should have the same traits. It's not the idea, because we understood that it's very much product related, region related, and panel related in a way. So it just, the lexicon is just kind of a reference of most used sensory attributes with their definition validated by the food scientist. And if a scientist wants to start a sensory panel on boiled cassava, for example, he can consult the lexicon, or he can also consult the trait dictionary, and he can select the traits he wants the panel to test. Because we are talking about trait panels, so I understood that most of the time the format is already done. It's not for each panelist to say what he wants to test, but I may have understood.
No, but I'm not specialist, but Christophe is there. But normally for one product, the panel is describing the traits that you will evaluate after. You list a big number of your description, and after this session, you decide what are the traits that you will evaluate.
Yeah.
And obviously, it's different if it's boiled cassava or fufu or eba.
Yeah.
And I understand better now that it's around the scale, because some scale are 1 to 10, over 1 to 100, over it's a number for a color, and this is what we need to work on.
Yeah, and what Amos was trying to exemplify is that if you start discussing a trait dictionary that will really describe the data files, so you know better what the value means, 7 under yellow, what it means, then it's good to have the same way of writing the variables. So it just means that you have an attribute, you have a class, so it can be appearance test, for example, and then you have a definition, you have a method of measurement and a scale. So that's just, it secures that the variable is properly described after a panel has given its evaluation, in fact.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Amos, I don't know if you want to add something.
Not really.
Okay. So I'm moving to the next question. It's actually linked to this. Suzanne is asking, could the question regarding the individual panelist scores be addressed by submitting the panel mean for a given sample to the Breedbase? So only the mean data. Elizabeth or Amos, I know we have been discussing this already with the sensory, yes.
With the BTI team as well.
Okay.
I don't know, Amos, if you feel like answering, you do. Otherwise, I don't want just to take your floor.
The mean, if
the average.
Hello?
Yeah.
Am I there?
Yes, you are.
Yes. So having each individual's mean, if you could repeat the question one more time for me.
So could we actually submit only the average for the whole panel for a given sample to Breedbase, and not the individual data for each panelist, but an average at panel level? I don't know if Amos has been working on this actually. So maybe Elizabeth, if you can just brief.
Yeah, sorry, I was looking for my demute button. Yeah, in fact, Amos had only one meeting with the BTI team, so he was not involved from the beginning. When we received the data sets from Matuke, was the first data set, and after we had the cassava one, we saw that there are two data sets in one file. One is the scoring per panelist, and the other one is the average, in fact. And we discussed with BTI, and that could be interesting for the breeder to access only the average. So it gives, in a way, it can give a kind of sensory profile of a variety. But we mentioned with Lucas that it's always interesting to go back to the individual data to better understand some. It doesn't harm in Breedbase to store this type of information. The thing we are discussing at the moment is more how Breedbase can accommodate the sensory panel data which are on food products. I see Asrat as a raised hand, so perhaps he wants to complement. I don't know, but that's the discussion.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Yeah, Ashrat?
Yes, I think mean is not a good measure, because sometimes if you are involving 4, 5, 6 people, you not know about the variability in the assessment between the panelists. So it is good to have, this is the database, it's good to have raw data, and then the user can maybe go for mean, or because there's a process where you can go for analyzing the data. So I think it's better to use the raw data rather than the mean data. Mean data is a bit compact, and they cannot show how the diversity or the variability between the panelists panelists. But having this, I have one question, if you allow me to ask. Hello?
Yes, please, Ashrat.
Okay, my question is on the color for the panelists to score. I think color is, you can measure it with colorimeter or maybe with the chart or something. So what's the value of scoring yellow or off-white or something with the panelist as a trait? Unless and otherwise, we try to see what is the color preference for that particular maybe consumption group. Sometimes white is preferred. So what is their reaction to the color? If they say maybe we prefer color or not prefer color, but I mean, color can be measured by some instruments than scoring. So what's your maybe reaction to this, or maybe your justification for this, for the panelists to score the color itself, not the preference for the color?
Thank you, Ashrat. I think the question may be more for sensory experts, so maybe Christophe. Yeah. Christophe, are you with us?
Yes, but ça a été trop vite pour moi. Je n'ai pas compris ce qu'il a voulu dire sur la couleur.
Oh, okay. If you allow, Ashrat, I will translate in French quickly.
Oh, okay, okay.
Christophe, c'est quelle valeur ajoutée de faire mesurer la couleur par des panélistes plutôt que de mesurer la couleur via un instrument, tout simplement? D'accord.
J'essaye en français ou en anglais?
Essaye en anglais, c'est possible.
C'est aussi sur les préférences de la couleur.
Thank you, Ashrat. Yes, you write about color, like yellow. It's possible to do by instrument, and for my experience on banana plantain, we didn't score yellowness on banana plantain because it was easier for us to do by chromometry. Mm-hmm. Yes. But for yellow, okay. But for example, for homogeneous of color, I think we need a panel to measure it.
Okay.
But if you have not a lot of attributes to score, perhaps you can have yellowness. I think is not a problem. But
okay.
It's with this attribute you can evaluate your panel in performance too. If you have a good correlation between chromometry and yellowness, you can say after that your panel is very performant.
Okay, but my question is, color is, you can measure it. It's maybe yellow, or maybe you can also get the intensity of the color. But for this food product, it is the preference for the color I think we need to measure. For instance, in case of yam, some places they like for pure white. So they have like rating for pure white, but if you go to maybe in other community, maybe look for the maybe brown one or creamy one. So that's I think it's a product. So what is the preference for that particular product? For instance, if your product is pure, some of the maybe product of the genotype is creamy, or some other is maybe purple. Then if you ask them to what is their preference for that particular color type of that product, then I would rather for me it's more interesting rather than, oh, this is purple or this is yellow. No, but for me the most important thing is, yeah, they like this color or dislike this color. Then this kind of, I think, information maybe, because that may change, because preference is not fixed. It can also change through exposure.
Can I make a comment? I'm not a food scientist, I'm sorry, but my understanding is that in the trained panels, people are trained to give a scale value to something. So they are trained to look at the yellow nuances or the white nuances. And the idea here is to collect just the measurement by a trained panel on a variety color. So it doesn't relate to any preferences. It's just that the panel has been trained to be able to say this boiled cassava is white. This boiled cassava is yellowish. So I don't know if you feel it has a value as right, but it's more to have what I understood, human sensors to assess immediately the range of colors for a series of varieties. What is the color of the boiled cassava for those varieties? And it's not about preferences, in fact.
Okay.
Can I say something?
Yes, please, Amos.
Yes. From the small experience that I have, I will not differ so much from what Elizabeth has said. A trained panel, they are trained to tell, for example, if we are using color, that this is yellow, this is light yellow. But from what the other speaker is saying, I think we need to have or to use all these skills, say the hedonic scale, the preference scale, because at the end of it all, it's the individual who is going to consume the food product. And why I think using a trained panel to actually give this scale or to come up with a scale is because you can use a machine and the machine will tell you this food product is yellow. But when actually if a human being was looking at the same thing, he will not tell if it is yellow. So I think after knowing that this is yellow, and then you can go ahead and get to know of the preferences, whether the consumer will like that yellow color or not, and maybe use these two to come up with a conclusion.
Yeah, can you go for your slide with the, I think it's format, okay, with the color or something? We have the scales. Yeah, maybe. Oh, no, I think, can you go back? Where you have one something 7 or 9 scale or something. Yeah, no.
So,
Forward one slide. No.
here.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So you see for the visual color scale, white, off-white, gray, something.
Yes.
Yellow, but then if there, I don't know what's the this is description. Do we really need description to be assessed by the panelist?
Okay.
Is it a good trait for panelists to assess the description of the the product? I think this is more just to describe it. There is white, it maybe to be gray or yellow or light brown. It's just a color, but if we don't attach this the sensory panelist assessment for preference for the color in that particular maybe use community or maybe in use group. So what is the value for having this description? Because this description can be done either by food scientists or maybe either can be measured by some instruments. Even the same for the other product, we scale with 100 something. But you can store this data, but what is the use value?
Yes, I understand, Ashad, but for some crop we have all the color, and people don't have a chronometer everywhere to evaluate, and they need to screen their crop. And for example, in sweet potato, or even in yam, you can have different color from the tuber or the roots. It's not only on yellow; it's really a large panel of color that you need to qualify.
Yes, Dominic, you mean white, you score white, and if it comes to that product, to me for a score, can it be yellow? No, it is white. So it's a
Yes.
description, anybody can score it.
Yes.
Rather than like having more work for this. I don't know, maybe this could be evaluated by sensory panelists, or maybe a kind of overall trait for assessing our product quality.
Yes.
Maybe it's okay for if we just say these are some of the traits, or maybe these variables we need to measure for overall product. But when it comes to really the assessment for the panelists, maybe it's better to see how the preference for the different color looks like.
I agree. If it's gray, if it's no shiny, but
yeah.
You know, each list of attribute is defined by the panel for each product, and I think if they use this scale is because they decide that they are the important one, and they decide to qualify light brown with an 8 because it's sometimes they have light brown, but really if you have a chromometer you don't need to do that.
Even the color chart, you can measure this.
Yes, of course.
I think we should move forward because there is another question, but I think the next step also is to correlate between the results and data from sensory panelists to correlate with hedonic tests to have the level of acceptability. So that's the next step to be done. And HUSP for RTB foods correlate work package 2 sensory data or results with the work package 1 activity 5 data. So that will be the next steps. So there's a question for BTI database managers, but they are not online anymore. But Elisabeth Arnaud can answer the question apparently, or part of the question. It is from Brigitte, IIT Uganda. Is there another application to collect quality data other than Fieldbook? Or is there a way of adapting Fieldbook to collect sensory data and other lab data with technical replicates? Elisabeth?
Yeah, so I can't answer fully on the behalf of BTI, but we had meetings following our work, and really what we are doing can really help creating lab books for sensory panels if we do things well, and if it's needed, could be also digitalized. However, at the moment, the way Breedbase is conceived doesn't enable food scientists to really select the quality trait they need for the food product and create a sensory panel form. So this is something we have on our list, is to discuss with Lucas what would be the effort to be made for accommodating a new module to Breedbase, and does it worth the effort, because it's something specific. As Amos showed, you can always relate the data back to the varieties, to the germplasm, if this information is clearly collected. But there are specific needs for describing a sensory panel trial, and this is not at the moment in Breedbase. But if such a model exists, it should enable the creation of a specific lab book or panel book, I don't know how to call it. Thank you.
Thank you, Elisabeth. Is there any other question? Otherwise, I have one for Amos. Amos, how do you consider using the trait dictionaries for processing techniques? Do you think these trait dictionaries for processing techniques can be included in a way or another into Breedbase? Amos?
Hello?
Yes, Amos, we can hear you.
Yes, hello?
Yes, you're with us.
Yes. So you're asking how the trait dictionaries for the processing techniques can be used?
Yes. And
From
can, yes. Yes, please, go ahead.
The trait dictionaries can be used to make ontologies, and I think that at the end these should be incorporated into. Hello.
Yes.
Yes. I can hear. This can be incorporated in a database like Breedbase. I believe that because at the end of it all, there would be no reason why all this information was collected if it cannot be used. So in the processing techniques, there are also they talk about, or there is information about the properties about these raw food products, and the properties that the processors or the small scale processors would prefer or like, and how these properties are measured, the units, and all this is very important information to be included in, say, a breed base, so that if a breeder is breeding for, say, for a crop for a processor, they know what this processor really wants. So I think it can finally be stored in a breed base. I don't know if I answer your question.
So I've seen on your slide that you have tested the feasibility of integrating sensory datasets into Breedbase, but have you started already to test the feasibility of integrating processing data into Breedbase?
No, not yet.
Okay.
Yes.
And is it planned? Or maybe Elizabeth can answer the question. Is it something planned?
Yeah, it could be, but what we need to understand also, because I was writing, in fact, there is in Breedbase an ontology called treat already for treatment, and it's more treatment of the samples. So you can find fried cassava or boiled cassava, you can find, but it's not really describing the processing unit, operating unit, and it doesn't at the moment contains the variables used like Alexandre shared with us, which are variables of the that how would you say, measuring how much kilos a processor can peel per hour. And this is very much linked to the quality of the route that has been chosen. So you can always link that back to germplasm. But at the moment, those variables are not in Breedbase. And it's very specific to the processing itself. So we probably need to discuss with them, and it's planned to have also such discussion, is how to link those specific variables with also the sample preparation descriptions. Is there any correspondence? Should it be completely apart, linked to food products? While that's asked, we discuss with BTI, and we plan a meeting next week with them, with involving AFOLA as well, who knows very well. So if somebody is interested to join our discussion, it will be Thursday next week. I don't know if Brigitte or anyone would like to be part of the discussion with Breedbase. You are welcome.
Okay. Yes, because some of these are good indicators of the yield in end product, actually, for each route, the yield in the processed product, actually. So it's good information to know, because you're right, it's linked to the quality of the variety.
Yeah, because Alexandre speaks about yield and productivity. So it's an interesting variable, I think.
Which is a different yield than the crop yield at field level.
Yeah, it's more related to the, I would say, the difficulty of processing the roots. If it's hard, it's soft, or this kind of thing. So it's a kind of a proxy for understanding the value of the root for the food product, perhaps.
Thank you. Any last question or comment for Amos? No? So thanks a lot, Amos, for this huge and impressive work that you have been doing for the last months. As you know, it's a really important work in RTB Foods, a really important set of activities that we are really willing to continue. So we hope that we can continue our collaboration together, and for sure we will have more webinars on this, because it's ontologies, it's a new terminology for most food scientists, but it's really important, as mentioned by you in your presentation, for standardization of data sets and common storage as well of our data sets. Dominique, you wanted to add something?
No, thank you very much. It's the first run, because we have also textural analysis, we have also biochemical analysis, and I think the ontology work is just beginning for the project, and we need to find a way to go to all these new attributes and new traits that we have in Work Package 2, and also for spectral analysis. It's a huge amount of work, and I think we need to organize very well to have all this ontology done at the end of the project. And thank you very much, Amos, for the first run.
Thank you very much. You're welcome.
So thanks everybody for joining today. In 2 weeks, we'll have a webinar on plantain preferences and quality characteristics in Nigeria, presented by Delphine Hama from IITA Ibadan. And in a month's time, we will have a webinar on the yam breeding strategy at CIAT Guadeloupe, presented by Gemma Arnaud from CIAT. So let's meet in 2 weeks, and thanks again for joining today. Have a nice weekend. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you very
Bye,
much.
Amos.
Bye, everybody.
Yes.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Didier.